What's up guys, Troy here from theinnergeekzone.com, and today we're going to take a look at some footage captured from the beta of Rift Storm Legion, and more specifically we're going to be taking a look at the player housing called Dimensions. Dimensions are an instanced area of Talara that players can own, and in these areas you're free to pretty much build and create whatever you would like. As we'll see in a moment, there's a nice set of tools in the Dimensions that let you take the materials available to you and really do a lot of different things with them, and it gives you a lot of flexibility and freedom to set up your area and build and decorate how you want to. Now, to pick up your very first dimension, it's free to get. This is the quest giver in Meridian for the Defiant side. He's also a vendor, carries a few goods and different things that you can purchase and take with you into your dimension. And this vendor right beside of him offers recipes that you can pick up and create things for your dimension using your crafting. Different crafting professions have the ability to craft unique items that you can use in your dimension or put on the auction house and sell to others and let them use it in their dimension. Obviously, these are just the first few things you have access to use in your dimension. I believe I heard the developer say on the live stream last week that there were 200, maybe a little more than 200 items available in the game right now as it stands before they even start really getting into depth. And this is something that, of course, they can add to over time. And the longer the game goes, the more items that are going to be available and the more unique things you're going to be able to get your hands on. For right now, we picked up a few different things to play with in the dimension. You saw we picked up some wood planks and some stone tiles that are going to be your basic building blocks to start out with. And, of course, the quest giver gave us our quest to go talk to someone, and they're going to continue us on the quest chain that gives us our very first dimension. For the Defiant side, we have to make our way out to King's Retreat, and this first dimension that you're able to get a hold of, I believe I heard the developers say, as of right now, it's going to be available around level 8 for players, so pretty much after you get through the tutorial zone and kind of make your way into Meridian, you'll be able to pick up this quest and head out and get your first little small dimension. The dimension vendor inside the city also had a dimension already for sale. It was available for 150 plat. So if you got that kind of cash on you, you can go ahead and pick up a bigger dimension for a little bit of cost. There are several different dimension areas available currently in the game. And of course, just like everything else, they can add more as the game goes on. Now that we're here in King's Retreat, we got to click the Finish Quest button and Accept Quest button a few times. This quest giver gives us a little stash of things that we're able to use, as well as the key to our first dimension. This is a usable item. Once you get it, you will have to open your bag and activate it, and then you will be able to access your Dimensions menu from your Social tab on your menu bar. From there, you can see we have the dimension available to us in the menu. All you got to do is click on it, and we'll load right in. The first thing you'll notice once you get into your dimension is that these are areas that are lifted straight out of the actual game itself. All the details of the game world are visible from where you are. You can see Kalari Refuge off in the distance there, as well as the ocean off to the side. You are limited to the area you have access to, though. Here you can see the barrier that comes up whenever you reach the limits of the property that you own. Within the confines of these shiny walls, you are free to build and add and use any dimension items that you want to in a lot of different ways in almost any way you want to. We'll run around the edge here and let you see the size of the initial dimension that you get. And of course, this is the very first one and it was free, so it is a little on the small side, as is the one for the Guardian side. But rest assured, there are larger dimensions available with a lot of unique features and from different places in the world of Talara. Now, from these areas, the developers have removed some clutter here and there to leave it open and kind of let you manipulate things the way you want. But there are some dimensions that have existing structures, such as the shrine here. Now, you can't tear these down or alter what's already there in any way, but you can build around it to make it appear to be something else. And we'll go take a look at some of the public dimensions here in a little bit, and I'll show you an example of somebody who's done just that. So the quest asked us to place this jar once we get into our dimension, and this NPC shows up. And we finish this quest, receive our pack of goods to use. We've already purchased a few things as well. And then he lets us continue the quest and says, pretty much when you're done trying things out here, pick my jar up, take it back to the quest giver that was in King's Retreat, and we'll reward you with something else. So, to utilize things in a dimension from your inventory, you will have to carry them from the real world in your inventory, in your bags, into the dimension. To use them within the dimension, you just simply click on them and drag them out into the world. Click on the world, and one of the things that you've just drug out will appear in the world. As you can see, the items that you drag out from your inventory do interact with the things that are existing in your dimension currently. So when I set it up on that little stone pillar, it raised itself up automatically. I can, of course, use this tool here. This is the movement tool that you can move in 3 different dimensions here. Back, forth, side to side, up and down. And I can go into and out of different things and set it into the ground, up out of the ground. You can leave things floating in the air. Pretty much set things any way you want to set them with this. Wherever you leave your item with this tool is where it will stay once you're done with the editing mode. So we can go in and out of editing mode as we move things around to kind of look without all the editing tools in the way to see how things are looking. Simply by clicking on the little wrench, brings up and takes down the bar that lets us choose which editing tool we're using. You can also use the edit layout option to move the UI around, to move the different toolbars around for the dimensions editor. Once you've got a specific movement tool selected, you can point and click at any item in your dimension and it'll highlight it. And from there, as you can see, the different color bars will come up and you can use those to move the item. All you gotta do is point and click and choose a different item and you can start moving something else. Also over on the wrench toolbar, you'll see there's a list of items that are currently in your dimension, and you can use that to either pick up items and put them back in your inventory or select them to use the current movement tool that you've got selected. If you pick something up out of your dimension, all you gotta do is go back into your inventory, find it, put it back out in the world. As you can see, we've got 2 torches in our inventory, so we can put another one out, set it up to the side any way we want to set it up, and have a nice little torchway there. So let's use some trees and some shrubs to kind of show you an idea of what some of the tools can do and some of the different things that you can accomplish within your world. Here we've set a tree out from our inventory, and as you see, we initially left it up in the air. If we wanted to leave it floating up in the air like that, we could. We can move it up and down and decide how deep the root system can be in the ground. It can come out of the ground just a little bit if we wanted to, or we can set it down in and make it look like it's kind of flush with the ground and the trunk of the tree is just growing out of the ground. We can also move the tree down into the hill to make a shorter tree. The ability to use the tools in this way lets you take existing items, such as this really tall tree, and hide part of it down into the hill. We can make it into a little short shrub itself, or we can just make it a shorter tree that's just a little bit taller than we are. From here, we'll dig into our inventory again, and we'll pull out a couple of shrubs and kind of set them up beside of it. You can create all kinds of different foliage and turn these and shape these any way that you want. And the only tool we've used so far is just placing them into the world and just moving them around. We haven't really even gotten into some of the other tools and what they can do yet. So now that we've got some things placed around kind of the way we want them, let's take a look at the tool that lets you adjust the scale of the items that you're using. Once you select this tool and the item that you want to scale up and down, a little red bar comes up. If you use your mouse to drag it one direction, it makes it larger. If you use your mouse to drag the red bar in the other direction, it makes it smaller. As you can see here, we'll pull it out of the ground so you can see it a little better. We've shrunk the tree way down. Instead of having to hide it in the ground to make it small, it's actually small. So we place it back in the ground and we run around to let you take a little look at it. And then we take a look at the other real super hardcore editing tool here. And this is the one that lets you rotate items on any given axis. As you can see, once you select this tool, you'll get a nice little sphere of axes which you can rotate your item on, and you can leave this tree upside down, hanging in the air, hanging from the limbs of another tree, hanging from the ceiling inside of a house. And we'll show some examples a little later on of some of the things some other people have done, but this really lets you just kind of finish maneuvering it around and really gives you a lot of freedom with what you want to do with the things that you have. And of course, obviously, we've got the freedom to set items, scale them, rotate them, and leave them anywhere we want in the dimension. Nothing has to go on a special little hook within the dimension to hold it. We can place it anywhere we want, and that's where it's going to stay. So now that we've placed some shrubbery and some decorative items, let's take a look at some of the basic building blocks that you've got to create some structures or walkways or anything really that your imagination can make up with them. This is the part where dimensions become like a giant box of Legos, and this is exactly the reason why I'm probably going to be insanely addicted to this and spend way too much time manipulating the exact location of boards one by one. So as you can see, we've placed a wooden plank into the world, and we can manipulate it as far as where it's located at, the axis of which is tilted, which way it's turned facing, as well as the scale of the board and what size it actually is. As you can see, once we turn the board vertically, we had to go to the other tool to kind of pull it up out of the ground a little bit. It is still beta, and things still have a tendency to oddly collide with each other or kind of bug out and disappear for a few seconds, but they typically come back. There again, it is still beta. Things are still being worked on. So if you see something here that doesn't look like it's working quite as intended, it may not be working quite as intended. But as you can see, you can take the item of the plank just like you can with the shrubs and the trees and anything else and maneuver it and really edit it and create what you want out of it. I've used the scaling tool to make the board a little larger so it takes up a larger area. You don't have to use quite as many small boards. If you're really wanting to cover a larger area, you can scale it up. And with the grain of the wood and everything, once you slide them in together and make them slightly overlap each other, they all kind of blend in and look like a bunch of little boards anyway, so you don't necessarily have to place hundreds and hundreds of tiny little boards if an area can be covered with one larger board. Now, one feature that has been added in for the second beta event here, as you'll notice, I simply clicked on the larger board that I just created, hit Control-D on my keyboard, and created an exact duplicate of the board that I had just scaled up and kind of got the right size that I wanted. As long as I've got another plank in my inventory, I can duplicate these boards as many times as I want to just by having them highlighted and hitting Control-D on the keyboard. Now, as you can see, once you've got two out, you can kind of maneuver them around. There is not a snapping feature right now where they just kind of snap together once they're within a certain radius. The developers have said that that's a little bit of a difficult code to really format, and that different items, especially with the ability to scale the different sizes and things like that, it'd be really hard to get them to snap together and really snap together the way you might want them to. It's a possibility for the future, but as of right now, you really have to get in and kind of fine-tune their position to really make them fit together like you want them to. So once again, since we bought quite a few planks, we'll go ahead and Control-D another one to create another duplicate and place it out in the world. Now, if you no longer want to create boards of this size, you can always just open your inventory, pull a regular size plank out into the world, and shape it and move it how you want. And you can go and click on it and duplicate it, or you can go back to one of these as long as it's highlighted with the editing tool on and Control-D it, and you'll just duplicate whichever one you've got highlighted. Here you can see we'll just place some regular planks out into the world just to show you that once you've created a plank of that size, it's not necessarily that every plank you've got is now that size. And now let's show off a few of the other items that we picked up from the vendor, including, I believe, we got a couple of rocks in our inventory, so we'll drag one or two of those out. As you can see, as you move the rock around, the texture of the skin of the rock changes and varies depending on where you've got it placed, so that not every rock is exactly identical when you put it down. Also, you can overlay rocks and set them inside of each other, of course, rotate them, change their axis that they're spun on, as well as change the scale of the size up and down so that all these rocks look pretty unique once they're in a formation like this. And once again, if we wanted to just have these rocks floating in the air and create a giant jumping puzzle within our dimension, we have the freedom and the ability to do that, and it's fairly easy to do. And there actually are a few jumping puzzles out there already, and a lot of people are getting really creative with the freedom that this dimension system offers the players, and are providing a lot of entertainment for other players who can come in their dimension and participate in some of the things they've got set up. Here's another example of something that I've seen players do, taking an item and using it for something different than what it actually is. For an example, we've got this table here, and you can turn it sideways, stick it up on the wall, and it's a type of wall decoration, such as a shield or a portrait or any kind of decoration that your mind conceives it is. So just because an item was created by the developers to be a specific thing doesn't mean that you can't use it for something else. You've got the freedom here to do anything you want. So there's going to be multiple uses for certain items that are built maybe as a couch or as a table or as a chair. I'm sure you're going to see players use it in some very unique and interesting ways as items that aren't necessarily what they were created to be. And that, of course, is going to be a lot of the fun in a system like this. Not only can you build and do and create as you want, but you can take other items and make them something else completely unique and different from what they were originally intended. This is a very player-centric system, and Trion have done a really nice job of really giving players as much as they possibly could and fulfilling everyone's wildest imaginations when it comes to the ability to really create and build things and move things and shape things in their own little world. Now, from your Dimensions tab, you've got the ability to control who has access to your dimension and who can actually change things in your dimension if you want to give permissions to place things, move things, or pick things up. Now, you can set these up so these people can just come visit your dimension and just explore and just see what you've built. But you can also give permission to place items, move items, or pick items up. One very important thing to keep in mind is if you give a group permission to pick something up, if they pick it up out of your dimension, it's going to go into their inventory, so they're free to just walk away with it. So don't necessarily give permissions to pick up items in your dimensions unless you just don't really care if somebody takes all your stuff, because that's always a possibility. Speaking of public invitations, though, you can make your dimension public for people to just come visit and explore and maybe participate in a jumping puzzle or something that you've set up. So here you can see we've pulled up the public list of dimensions that are available, and we're going to go in and take a look at some of them and give you an idea of what some other players have created that have had a little more time to really spend to create something unique. This one I believe is titled Flying Fortress. And this was actually created by a dev with a little bit of an add-on that he had created that kind of helped things maybe snap together. There will obviously be some pretty heavy add-on support for these dimensions and the ability to build things within your dimensions. So you can look forward to that from some of the better add-on developers that are out there. There are probably going to be some pretty useful tools developed in the pretty near future. Now, there hasn't been a lot of time spent decorating this. This was just kind of set up to show some of the structures and just kind of some of the possibilities that are available within the dimension that you have the freedom to do and set up anything you want. Of course, here it looks like the structure has been reinforced with poles here and there, but if you wanted to just float floors up in the air, you can feel free to do that. You don't have to stack anything on top of each other to get it to stay where you want it. And as you can see, once we get up top, this guy has some humongous guns on top of his fortress. When decorating with guns, always make sure they are huge. So from here, let's pull up our public list of dimensions again, and let's choose another one to go into. As you can see on this list, there is a rating system when you're in someone's dimension. If you want to rate it, recommend it for other players, all you gotta do is hit the +1 button on your little wrench toolbar over there to the side, and that adds an upvote to the dimension and recommends it, moves it up the list for other players to take a look at. It's your way of being able to say, hey, this is pretty cool, come check it out. So you'll recognize this as a redecorated version of the tavern that's in Granite Falls in the area of Stonefield, especially if you're Defiant. You've probably most definitely seen this area. As you can tell, this player has added quite a few items to the area, redecorated it. The tavern, of course, is already existing. It was stripped down on the inside to kind of give you the freedom to set it up how you want. The bar that's across, that's normally on that side right there, is gone, and some of the items that were inside have been taken away. But that leaves it open and empty for you to set it up how you want and add the things that you want wherever you want them without being restricted by what was already kind of there. The area, of course, includes the lake in the back, and you can see the waterfall coming down over the Granite Falls, and it's really quite a gorgeous area to be in. As you can see, a lot of players have built some steps into their areas. The character model doesn't have a really good time going up and down these steps that are player created right now. An easy solution that I've seen for that is to add just one plank just kind of going up the steps, kind of making a slope, and a player can go up that and still kind of give the illusion of steps. I'm not sure if that's something that's going to be able to be addressed or not in the future, but for now the steps still look nice, even if they're not quite functional without necessarily jumping up them. From here, let's take a look at something even a little more unique. This is going to be an area that a player has taken and made sort of through the looking glass Alice in Wonderland style. And as you'll see here in just a minute, things are a little topsy-turvy in this area. Here you can see there still are some collision issues with the character model when you warp into a dimension. Our bodies half sunk into the platform, but all we gotta do is take a few steps and we're out of it. There was a patch over the weekend that was supposed to address a lot of issues like that, so some of that may have already been resolved. Once again, keep in mind this is still beta, and there is still plenty of time for them to get all these little kinks ironed out, and they still are working very hard to fix these small issues. I just thought this was a pretty cool little area. All the bookshelves are turned upside down, the trees are upside down, the lighting that would normally hang from the ceiling is hanging up from the floor. Everything's just kind of turned topsy-turvy. There's things floating around in the air. It's just a very odd, mystical feel to the area, especially when you're inside this little alcove here that this player has built. It was just kind of cool to see. It was a bit of a surprise when I first walked in there. But that just goes to show, once again, the freedom and the flexibility that you have to create things and kind of do what you want with them. Also, you'll notice that some of these areas we've wandered into are quite a bit larger than the very small little starting area that the free little zone that we started out in was. And of course, all these will be available to purchase, and you can acquire any of these that you wish. As of right now, the plan is for you to be able to have one active dimension, the dimension that contains all your things you've got set up, and you can also have a few different inactive dimensions that you've purchased that you can move your things to per character. Also note that on your little menu for the dimensions, you've got access to go into your alt's dimensions. So if your rogue has a dimension that he's got set up and your cleric has a dimension that he has set up, you have the ability to go to your cleric's dimension while playing on your rogue character. Nice little feature if you want to jump in, grab an item out of there, or move around and play with that dimension while you're on your rogue. You have the freedom to do that. All in all, this is a really great system, and Trion are doing a really good job of bringing us a unique flexibility and freedom to player housing that we've never really had in many other games, and the availability to build and create anything we want. I'm sure there are going to be tons of unique things to do, mazes, jumping puzzles, things that I can't even think of off the top of my head. The players are going to create for you to come in and see and just be in awe of, or actually participate and do an activity in. It should be a great system, and I'm really looking forward to what Trion can really accomplish with what they've laid the groundwork for here. There are now a few different MMOs out there that allow different types of player-created content, and really that's probably going to be a nice little wave of the future, is having a significant amount of player-created content and giving the players the ability to rate and recommend the best of the best to other players. So this is going to wrap up our look at dimensions in the Rift Storm Legion beta as we make our way into a player-created maze, a prime example of some awesome player-created content and an activity for other players to do and spend some time in the game doing something other than killing just tons and tons of creatures. If you enjoyed this video and found it informative, don't forget to hit the like button underneath. I'd appreciate it very much. It helps spread the word, and that's always a good thing. And if you haven't already, we'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be notified anytime we've got a new video out. Or you can do that also by checking out the blog at theinnergeekzone.com. Follow us on Facebook.com/theinnergeekzone. And we're on Twitter at innergeekzone. But I'm out of here for now, guys. And as always, thank you very much for watching.